Question 7, and it's a quality of written communication. So when you're in an exam, just make sure you set your work out probably better than I'm going to do right now, because I'm quite limited in terms of the space I've got on the screen. So let's have a look. Does the farmer have enough fence, basically? And the farmer has 50 metres of fence, and we've got to see if that will be enough to get around the perimeter of this trapezoidal field. Well, we definitely have 11, and we definitely have 10, and we definitely have 18 to contend with. So if we added those up, 10, 20, 30, that's 39. So that's 39 metres. So it all really hinges on this distance here, which I shall call x. Now if we look more closely at the diagram, we really should be looking for Pythagoras to help us out here, because if we create a right-angled triangle here, then we know that this distance is 10 because it corresponds to the base here, and we should know that this distance here is 7 metres. Why? Because if it's 18 from there to there, and we're given 11 from there to there, then the difference is going to be 18 minus 11, which is 7. So using Pythagoras' theorem, we can work out that x squared, the hypotenuse, would be the sum of the smaller squares of the sides. So we'd have x squared is 7 squared plus 10 squared. So that would give us 49 plus 100. So x squared would be 149. And all you really have to do is use your calculator. And if you did, you would see that x would be 12.206556 and so on. If you're not quite clear on how to use the calculator here, if you have x squared is 149, then you can either write square root of 149 to find the length, or you can write 149 to the power a half, or 149 to the power 0.5. And on a lot of calculators you have a button with x and a little box, so you could just write 149, that button, and then either 1 divided by 2 in brackets, or just write 0.5 in there instead, which is probably a bit quicker. So is there going to be enough fencing? Well, like I said before, you'll set your work out probably better than myself, although it's not going to be too bad what I've done. And so you've got your 39 from before, okay, and then you've also got your 12.206 and so on. So if you add those together, you will have 51.206 and so on meters. So you would say as a conclusion, does he have enough fence? And you would just say exactly what I've just written there to save your time. Okay, so I think you've shown enough working there. Pythagoras normally crops up on a paper. Sorry to use the word crop there as a pun. You either get it or you don't. And there we go, so that's question 7. Question 8, and again, a quality of written communication. And it's about comparing the costs of 3 different types of toothpaste, or the same type of toothpaste but sold in 3 different sizes, and you've got to work out which is the best value for money. Now for this type of problem I would definitely do the following. I would always look for what 1 milliliter was worth. So let's try that. So we'll try and set our work out well. So we'll have our 50 ml range first. So 1 ml, what would that be? Well, if you read carefully here, you can see that 50 mils would be 109 pence. I'm going to convert to pennies here. So 1 milliliter would be 109 divided by 50, be 50 times smaller. Okay? So if we can do that on your calculator, so thank goodness it is a calculator paper. So we've got 109 divided by 50, and that gives us 2.18 pence per milliliter. Okay, so that's the 50 ml range, and then we can look at, luckily I've got a bit more space here now actually, we can look at the 75 milliliter toothpaste. So I should have written that there perhaps. Now 75 milliliters, then if we want to work out what 1 milliliter is, so let's set our working out like this. 75 milliliters, it says it costs £1.68, which is 168 pence. And then if we want what 1 milliliter is, then we can divide both sides here of this proportion by 75, and we'd have 168 divided by 75, i.e. 75 times smaller. And again, we can reach for our calculator. 168 divided by 75, and that would give us 2.24p per mil. So we can write here 1 mil would be 2.24p. Our first type, our 50 ml toothpaste, that was, don't forget, 2.18p per mil. Now, last of all, we want to look at the 125 milliliter toothpaste, and we know that 125 milliliters was £2.69 or 269p. So 1 milliliter or 1 mil would be 269 divided by 125. Now I'm reaching for my calculator, of course. There are many ways you can do this without, i.e. just by pencil and paper, but let's just get this done with the calculator first. And we get 2.152 pence, that's per milliliter. Okay, so we've got all of the comparisons here, so I'm probably going to just write them down here. It's probably a bit annoying what I'm doing, so let's just have the first one there, then there's the next one, and then here's the next one. We want to see which one is the cheapest. So is it 2.18? So is it 2.18? Is it 2.24? Or is it 2.152? Well, I would say it was 2.152. So this is the one which is going to be the cheapest. And I would probably write this as my conclusion. Therefore, the 125 ml toothpaste offers the best value for money. Okay, if you want to skip this next bit, that's up to you. I just want to look at a couple of ways of doing this without a calculator. I'm not going to go over the whole question, but just these two perhaps. If we were looking at 168 divided by 75, well, you could double the numerator, which is 336. You could do that in your head, hopefully, and then double 75, which is 150. And then you could double the numerator again and get 672, and double the denominator and get 300. And the nice thing about this is, if you just did 3's into 672, I ignored these zeros here, which make a big difference to the answer, but in terms of place value we can get an idea of what's going on if we ignore them and just look at the one that does have a non-zero place value, i.e. the 3. We can do 3's into 6 is 2, 3's into the 7 is 2, remainder 1, and then 3's into the 12 is 4. And then if you kind of look at how these correlate, you can see, well, 224, you know that wouldn't be the answer because we're not dividing by 3 here, we're dividing by 300. So we want to make the answer we've got here 100 times smaller, and of course that would get you back to 2.24. If we look at this one here, say 269 over 125, again I used to say to my students double out of trouble, so we can double the numerator and get 538. Double the denominator to get 250. We can double again, so we get 1076 over 500, and we can double again and get 2152 divided by 1000. And then look here, we can see 2152 here, because if we divided 2152 by the 1, that's exactly what we'd get, but we want it to be 1000 times smaller. So if you spent the time looking at that last little bit and didn't skip on, then you might just pick something up about not having to use a calculator all the time, because sometimes in real life you just don't have that at hand, and pencil and paper would be a good idea, or be able to do it in your head purely mentally. Okay, that can be quite a good skill to be able to do it all in your head. Right, so let's move on to the next question. So question 9, use a ruler and compasses, which I don't have, but you will, to construct the perpendicular bisector of the line segment AB. And you must show all your construction lines. Well, if we want to bisect something, we want to cut it in half, and we want the perpendicular bisector, so we want something that's not going to cut it in half like so, because that wouldn't be 90 degrees. We want it to cut it in half, and this is just by looking something of this nature. But how are we going to get that correct exactly and make the examiner believe that we have actually used a ruler and compasses? Well, here's how. First thing to do is to put your sharp point of your compass, say at this end here, and then stretch it out so it goes over halfway of the distance between A and B. And then all you have to do is just draw part of a circle, i.e. an arc. Now you can make this go all the way round if you want, it doesn't really matter. And then you can switch sides and put your sharp point here, keeping the distance between the pencil and the sharp end the same, and do the same. Now some students don't like switching the compass around too much, so one way was to start with the sharp point here, do your arc like so, and then just follow it round to the bottom here, then switch and have your sharp end here, not forgetting to keep the distance between the sharp point and your pencil the same. Switch over and do your arc here and here, and then all you have to do with your ruler then is to join this point to this point. Now obviously mine's not going to look very good because I've just done that literally by sight, and I can show you how bad it's going to look here. There. So that's quite bad, but you'd do it better in the exam. Okay, so that's question 9.